Welcome to Higher Ed Athletics. Today I'm joined by the president of Tarleton State University, Dr. James Hurley. Dr. Hurley, thanks for being on the show.
Travis, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, so I want to kind of give some introduction to both you and your institution, and for those unfamiliar, but you hired as the 16th president in August 2019, so into year 5, and you've had presidencies at Tusculum University and University of Pikeville, where you also you were an alum, I believe. And what I've, of course, found interesting was a fellow Hoosier on the screen.
Yep.
Completed your master's degree in educational leadership and administration at IU in the HESA, the School of Education. So that's what my doctorate is housed in, that I'm trying to finish up. And then a little bit about your institution. I think a lot of people are well noted in the industry know you all went from D2 to D1. But what I don't think they realize is you think D2, you don't think necessarily large enrollment. Now I know the differences. I spent 2 years as a grad assistant at Nova Southeastern, a D2 in Florida, and kind of an inverted school. You had about 25,000 students. But your school has 18,000 students approximately. I know enrollment figures are starting to come in, so definitely give me this. If it went up, let me know. In Stephenville, Texas, you all are the Texans, which I love, and members of the Texas A&M system, also celebrating 125 years. And one thing that I know is a big deal that maybe some of the athletic folks don't is, I think a couple of years ago you joined the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, APLU, which, for those not aware, I mean, it's a pretty big initiative and triumph for higher education. One of the things that people definitely think about. So how'd I do with the introduction there?
You nailed it. Podcast, or I guess this session's over and we can go on our ways, right?
Well, one of the things we did talk about was I watched your 2023 State of the University address, which, based on timing, I think you're probably preparing for your 2024 one. I wrote down some notes about what I especially liked about it. I think it was definitely a team effort. I mean, the video your students put on, incredible. I mean, showed a lot of things academically and athletic initiatives, arenas, things like that. There's just sounds like there's a lot of cranes around and a lot of cool things going on. But can you share a few of those things that maybe you're most excited about now and into the future with both the athletics and just the rest of the university that you're leading?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. But first, and foremost, I want to start by wishing everyone a happy Patriot Day. And as we remember 9/11, as Travis and I are filming, today is the 23rd anniversary of the tragic events that unfolded across our country. And so here we're at Tarleton State. We're a very patriotic institution. We have one of the 8 designated Corps of Cadet programs in the country. Us and Texas A&M University, the 2 in Texas. So we very much value our military heritage, and we support our men and women and servicemen and women that are keeping us safe and free and allowing you and I to do these types of things. So I would be remiss if I didn't start by saying that. And also what we're most excited about right now, as you alluded to, Travis, is we are celebrating our 125th year anniversary and establishment here. Back on September 4th of 1899, we held our first class and set of classes. And that year we had 127 students. That's what the historians have noted. And as you alluded to, once again, we're now over 18,000 students. So tremendous growth over the last 125 years. But we were founded, John Tarleton left his life's fortune to establish an institution of higher learning. And the premise was to create access, opportunity, and affordability for people of the Erath County region. That was the original mission. Now, obviously, that mission 125 years later has certainly grown. We have 230 plus of the 254 counties, which ironically makes us the 3rd largest university in the state of Texas for the number of Texas counties represented in their student body, only behind Texas Tech. They set at about 240, and then Texas A&M University, they have all 254 counties. So something we're really proud of is our growth, not only our growth taking care of the regional needs, but now we're becoming a four-corner state institution where we have students from all across the great state and country of Texas, because it's such a big place, across the nation, 48 of the 50 states and 50 plus countries represented. So what I'm most excited about is the fact that our mission and the DNA of the institution remains the same. We're still laser focused on access, opportunity, and affordability. But because we have such an incredible story to tell here at Tarleton State, our mission is growing, and that mission is to service all students. And here at Tarleton, all means all. And we're really, really excited about the direction and the growth and the momentum. And we've got something pretty awesome called the Tarleton Forward, our 2030 strategic, future-focused strategic plan. And I'm really excited about every single year we revisit that strategic plan, and we have resets, and we have accomplished over half of that strategic plan that we set out in 2020 to accomplish already. And now we're redefining that strategic plan moving forward.
And then I think I saw, so you have building an arena too. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a good, yeah. So we have roughly 500 and nearly 550 million. I think the exact number, Travis, is roughly $535 million of active construction going on under the university umbrella. That includes both the main campus and our Fort Worth campus. And so we have a $125 million new event center going up, which AKA arena.
Yeah.
That event center is really more than just a gymnasium for basketball, right? It's for convocations. It's for commencements. We want to enhance the cultural opportunities and access for not only our students, but the region we serve. The next closest arena of scale to the one we're building, that will be roughly 10,000 seats for concerts, et cetera, is Dickey's Arena in Fort Worth. And so being able to attract headlining concerts and symposiums and conventions and all those types of things that can also aid economic development for our city and county and region is really important to us. We're the economic engine of the region. We're the largest employer, not only of our county here in Erath, but every contiguous county. In fact, we're the largest employer until you get into Fort Worth. And so we have this social, moral, and financial kind of responsibility to help ensure that the region is prosperous and that the state is prosperous.
Yeah, I had Coastal Carolina President Dr. Benson on recently. He's been a resource.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I got to talk about his book and really enjoyed reading his book. But we talked about how they're building a convocation center and for many of the same reasons. And I think the way you both kind of communicate and approach and represent your university, at least digitally from what I can see from afar, are very similar. So I like the way you kind of explain that too, that it's more than just that, and it's going to be a regional thing. So
yeah, Dr. and I've been buddies back from Kentucky when I was president. Pikeville, he was president at EKU, and he was a great friend and mentor. And he had been a president at I think
Southern Utah,
two previous institutions before he arrived. So he was more seasoned. I don't want to say older. Mike and I are great buddies, but he really provided a tremendous amount of mentoring and was a distant friend and just really gave me some great guidance, in particular when it came to research and athletics.
Yeah. Well, other thing I noticed from the my little research on the Office of the President website and just throughout Tarleton's website was the First Lady of Tarleton State, Kindall Hurley. She has several education degrees and an MBA. So just kind of curious with that that First Lady role at Tarleton, combined with all that that education and clearly an interest, how does that kind of fit into her role there?
Yeah, well, I'm very biased, and so anyone listening to this would certainly understand that would be in a similar role. I believe we have the best First Lady in all of higher ed. She is incredible in every sense. Kindall is a beautiful person, both outwardly and inward. She truly loves her students. She loves the institution. She loves her role. She's very cautious to be behind the scenes, and she's not one that leads from the front. She is there as a support and she wants faculty and staff and students to know that when they need her, she's here for them. She is uber active with me in all the events. She's by my side and really loving on these kids. We feel like, so we live on campus, Travis. You may not know that. I don't know if you've had an opportunity. I don't think you've had an opportunity to visit our campus. So we live in the Trogdon House. It's called the Trogdon House. It's the president's home, and it has been in place for 100 years. So now 101 year. Last year, we celebrated our 100th anniversary of the Trogdon House, and the president has lived in the home and their families. And so for us, and it's literally right in the middle of campus, and it's one of those glass homes where it's truly open and you're open and exposed to the entire campus and world, if you will. And she really embraces that. And she loves being the kind of the surrogate mom for these kids as they're away from their moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas. And we take that very seriously. She is well educated, and she worked actually as a teacher at the P-12 level before the hospital system back in Tennessee recruited her in. And so she spent a majority of her professional career before we moved here in hospital administration. And that's what she loves. She loves working with in the hospital setting. And that's where her heart and her passion lies. And her educational degree and obviously her MBA from the University of Tennessee allowed her to transition into that role 15 plus years ago. And so she is able to use those degrees to connect with students in a way and remind them that she too was a college student, and she understands the highs and lows and all the bumps that students have to navigate throughout their educational journey. And so she's just a tremendous advocate for the institution, and I'm so proud of her, and I love her so much because she loves people. And a fun fact about Kindall, you noticed her spelling. It's Kindall. And her mother named her Kindall and spelled it as such because at birth, she wanted Kindall to be kind to all people. And that's how the spelling came about. And she really is. If you ask anyone on campus, they will tell you she is the kindest soul you'll ever encounter. So,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was so I've worked in a president's office and I study presidents. So but I thought that the fact that, it's a lonely job too. I mean, you have the fact that not only you have a spouse to bounce ideas off of that just wants to, be a good spouse and hear you out as spouses do with each other, but also the fact that education understanding and you've been president at 2 other universities too. So it's probably just it's got to be nice to be able to have someone that close to you that also knows the experiences.
Yeah, she's been incredible. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. She's been incredible with the transitions that we've had, moving from president to president to president. And she really keeps the threads of the Trogdon home intact. We're the proud parents of 4. So our oldest son, Drew, is a junior at West Point, and he'll serve the country, and we're really proud of him. And our youngest son just enrolled at Morehead State as a track and cross country athlete, and I'm very proud of him. I love Jay Morgan, the president, and what they're doing up there. Of course, I'm biased. I have my doctorate from Morehead State, and so to see him go there and thrive. And we wanted our kids to leave us, so to speak, because they know our campus. They've been here. They've kind of grown up on our campus, or a campus, I should say. And we wanted them to be able to go and experience college as a student and not the president's son. And and so that was really important for us and important to him. And we're really proud of both of them. They're doing an incredible job. And of course, we have 2 little ones at home that are navigating elementary school. And so she's very, very busy taking care of all the things that really matter in life.
That's awesome. So I want to shift to some of your leadership. I like to ask athletic directors about what it's like from their perspective to being on the president's cabinet, because most people that listen are not at that level yet. I do have sitting athletic directors that definitely listen, but I think the majority listen for kind of tips on that are in that deputy or senior associate role. And so when I have a president on, I like to ask kind of the other side. I mean, what is your leadership strategy like with your cabinet, both as a group, whenever you're all together, and then also in your individual one-on-ones, which I'm sure you have?
Yeah, great question. So I have 10 vice presidents, and all 10 report to the president. We have a unique system here at Tarleton State that somewhat lines up with system expectations, Texas A&M system expectations in terms of executive leadership. So I have 2 executive vice presidents. I have an executive vice president for academic affairs and provost. That's Dr. Stearns. And we also have a new president or new vice president that we just hired from Baylor. He was Baylor's number 2. He's now our CFO and executive vice president for business affairs. And so those 2 are executive cabinet members, but all 10 are on the executive cabinet. So I do not have a separate cabinet in terms for executive cabinet leadership. They're all part of my executive cabinet team. Those 2 have different titles because of the responsibilities that they have, not only here at Tarleton State, but also within the system. So I'm really thankful for what I believe is the best national comprehensive university cabinet in the country. I wouldn't trade any of my cabinet members for any other cabinet members. We have tremendous diversity. We have, I call them, they're all 10 alphas. When we get in the room, they have these incredible ideas and they're growth oriented, but more than that, they're student centric. Every single cabinet member I have is focused on student success, faculty, and staff success, because we believe here at Tarleton State and our cabinet believes that if our students are successful above all else, then everyone else, by virtue of that, will be successful. Faculty, staff, administration, alumni, donors, supporters, system, etc. And so we're laser focused on that. We meet every Monday twice per month. So every other week we meet on Mondays, typically for about 4 to 5 hours. I try not to have meetings for the sake of meetings. And then each month I meet with my presidents for at least an hour to an hour and a half. But we do more via phone. We do more pop-ins. Hey, I need to come over and see the president for 5 minutes to bounce something off of him, or just to let him know what's going on or make him aware of the situation. So very, very formal and informal conversations. And so our focus is all around our strategic plan. And we keep a copy of it. And I'll send you a copy of this, Travis. This is just the executive summary, but this really is our guiding star, North Star, so to speak. And everything that we do really centers upon, are we future focused, and are we thinking about what's in the best interest of our students through a strategic plan? And of course, our vice president for athletics and athletic director, Steve Uryasz, serves on that cabinet.
Yeah, and kind of getting to that, for those that are a deputy or a senior associate, they are trying to kind of prepare for that AD role. They know athletics really well, right? Or they wouldn't be in the positions they're in. But what kind of advice, and this could probably be advice you give to anyone that's, even if it's a dean working their way up to the provost, how can you think someone can prepare well to join the cabinet before they're actually at that level, so that they have an understanding of what that role encompasses, but also just trying to find experiences that prepare them?
I had the good fortune and to work under a lot of great people, Jim Ramsey at the University of Louisville, and Paul Patton at the University of Pikeville, who was the governor of Kentucky, and I had the great fortune of working and serving as his chief deputy. One of the things that Governor Patton used to say to me when I was kind of climbing the ranks, he said, whatever role you're in, be the very best in that role. And that's how you're going to ensure yourself of being great at the next level. So if you want to be a president someday, he said, you have to be the very best vice president and make yourself so valuable that other people, either inside the organization or outside of the organization, covets your talents and your ability to make their organization better. And so the advice I would give to any dean or associate athletic director that's aspiring to move up, or a provost that wants to become a president, be the very best in that role. Don't think about being the president. Don't try to act like the president, or don't try to act like the AD. Be the very best associate AD. Be the very best assistant AD, be the very best dean of business, be the very best provost. And by virtue of that, you're preparing yourself inadvertently for all of the decisions that presidents or ADs have to make. And so I thought that was really good advice. And so the advice I have for people, and I'm often contacted by, I used to be the young president in the room, right? And Mike Benson, and we all used to be the young guys, and now we're the old guys. It's my 12th year as president, and it's you have a lot of scars from experiences and trials, and not everything goes well. And that's the other thing that I will tell young leaders is innovative thinking is exactly what board of regents and board of trustees and board of governors seek in a president. And that's what presidents seek in athletic directors and provosts. We need innovation. Higher ed is under a lot of pressures for declining enrollment, public pressure of, is a college degree worth the investment, things that you're studying now, Travis. And so how do we create this high tide for all boats to rise? And that's the mindset that I take. And so I think being innovative, outworking every single person in your field is really, really important. That's what I try to do. I'm never going to be the smartest president in a convention or a room, but I'm going to outwork every other person in that room. And so that's the advice I would give those aspiring leaders.
That's good. I think you and Dr. Benson are still young for college presidents. So
Mostly,
I'm sure it ages you, your mind, but I'd say you two are both pretty sharp still. So I think you're still the young guys.
Yeah.
So another thing that they went through at Coastal is a recent AD hire right before I had him on the podcast, and yours has been in place for quite a bit now with Steve Uryasz, but impressive background. Hired him in February 2024, and just kind of curious about. I like to hear about processes, and so maybe the AD search process that ultimately led to him, but being selected, but also who's on the search committee. I mean, a lot of people know there's a search firm involved, which I'm sure you all utilize that. A lot of that's for speed and confidentiality because these people are in very public jobs too. But I'm kind of more curious about on campus. I mean, who's involved in that search committee too?
Yeah, we were fortunate in the fact that we used Daniel Parker Athletic Executive Search, and Daniel is, I think, one of the top 3 thought leaders in this field, and I have an incredible relationship with him and others too. But we felt like that Daniel brought a skill set to us that we were certainly looking for. We are so blessed to have Steve Uryasz here leading our intercollegiate athletic department. He is 40-year vet, started at I may get this in reverse order, but has worked at Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Texas Tech, and most recently West Virginia University. And I have a ton of respect for each of those institutions. He worked for Ren Baker, the athletic director, for a short period at WVU. I knew a lot of people, obviously coming from the Appalachian region, that had nothing but glowing things to say about Steve. So for us, Travis, what was important to us is we wanted someone that understood the complexity that we're all facing in intercollegiate athletics. We also wanted someone that understood Texas. We felt like at this point in our transition and also our trajectory and growth as an institution, and just knowing the landscape of Texas, we felt like gave someone an advantage. Now, it certainly wasn't the number 1 priority, and it was lower on the scale. It was more maybe number 5. But we also wanted someone that valued delivering an exceptional student athlete experience above all else. And Steve just throughout the process continued to rise to the top. He was number 1 coming out of the Zoom interviews. And so I'll go in reverse order. We had about 10 individuals on the committee. We had representation from faculty senate. So our chair-elect, Dr. Carl Alho, who's a tremendous supporter of the university and understands the balance of the academy and athletics and research and all those important components. And he was incredible, an incredible member of the search committee. We had, so that certainly faculty senate. We had staff council, we had alumni, we had the chair of our foundation board. We also had a member of our Bleed Purple NIL collective. And then we had 2 coaches. We had our head football coach, who's our winningest football coach in the history of Tarleton State University, and he's the winningest football coach in the state of Texas since 2018. As you know, we have the winningest football program in the state among Division I, Division II teams since 2018. And also our head women's tennis coach, who has led us to conference championships and is highly coveted, chooses to stay here, and has one of the top tennis programs in the country. So we felt like we had great representation across the board. We started off with, we had north of 50 plus applicants. We narrowed that field, the committee narrowed that field down to about 10 to 12 that we had Zoom interviews over 2-3 days. And from there, we narrowed the list to 3 candidates. We brought those candidates on campus in a very silent, kind of not hidden, but we were transparent with the committee and with folks that we felt like were the important stakeholders. But we had sitting athletic directors, and we also had sitting associate ADs at Power 5 conference schools, now Power 4 schools. We didn't want to jeopardize their place at their current institution. So Daniel Parker did an incredible job. And once Steve Uryasz came on campus, everyone just fell in love with his leadership, his ability to fundraise, but also his experience as leading an FBS program. And I'm sure you know, we have aspirations at some point to continue our growth and trajectory. And we feel like we're in a perfect position to be the next FBS institution in the country.
Yeah, and that's something I want to get to next, is really about the reclassification process. And actually, before I do that, this kind of probably goes a little bit more about this, because this is recent. So recently I had Brian Blair, the athletic director at Toledo, on the podcast, and a younger AD that's worked his way up. He was the number 2 at Washington State, and had been in pretty critical roles everywhere. And I've followed his career closely, and I kind of asked him about, I said, the way you carry yourself, the way you're on digitally, and just how you run your program. From working for a Big Ten president, I was like, a lot of what you do really seems like a president's role. Not like, I wasn't trying to say like you're trying to think you're super important as the AD, but it's just your approach. And he kind of coined the term, I think it's a modern day athletic director. And so it was kind of a leading question, but it's going to be it's narrowed down on probably my top 3 dissertation topics, is trying to prepare the next generation of athletic directors to basically understand what university presidents do and who they serve, and the nuances of their job and the different constituent groups. And I'm just kind of get your take on that modern day athletic director, but by just from your perspective, tell people a little bit more about your role as a president, how many people, your communication, and how many people you really have to serve. Because I think it'll really open some eyes up for people that want to be an athletic director in the future.
Yeah. So the complexity of being a university president today is probably more complex than it ever has been. And part of that is intercollegiate athletics and the complexity and the changes, the visibility. One of the things that I often share with my faculty and staff, and they appreciate my sentiment, and they certainly understand my point, and many agree. Athletics will never be the most important endeavor we embark upon at a university, certainly not at Tarleton State or anywhere that I serve. It's student success. It's the academy. It's teaching, learning, research. It's service to community, service to institution. All those things are far more important than intercollegiate athletics. The issue for all of us is athletics is the most visible, and it brings the most visibility to your institution. It brings the most, both positive and negative. And so you have to prepare for that. You have to prepare for the highs and lows of a given athletic season and within a program. And you're also basing the emotions of a fan base and alumni base on roughly, let's say, 18 to 22-year-olds, right? And so that makes it even more complex. And the fact that the NCAA is literally changing every single day, I almost hold my breath when I have a chance. I don't necessarily get to read the D1 ticker every day, but I at least read it every other day. And what I love about it is it if you missed a day, you can always go back and see what happened yesterday. And sometimes that's me. It may be 2 or 3 days. But I kind of hold my breath in anticipation of what's next and what hurdle will our athletic director, vice president for athletics, and myself and everyone else, the stakeholders that are involved, have to encounter or deal with on said day. And saying that, the stakeholders have really grown. The stakeholder group has really grown from my perspective as a university president. You now have to deal with, as a state-supported institution, your legislators. They're very, very important in supporting and helping finance. You have your board of regents. I have a chancellor. We have a very large system, a very complex system, and we're a very complex university. We have one of the largest colleges of ag in the country. And we're one of the largest non-land grant colleges of ag in the country. Very complex. We're starting medical school. We're starting health science programs across the board. So dealing with faculty, with staff, with students, with parents, with community, with alumni, with donors, with legislators, with your board. It just, there's not enough time in a day, and there's certainly not enough days in the year to accomplish it. And so the advice I give future presidents when they call me, or individuals that have just been named, and a lot of those individuals are reaching out to kind of get a recipe of success here, I often tell them, you have to prioritize what's the most strategic use of your time, because you're not going to be able to meet the demands of everyone's wishes, and you can't fill your schedule with everyone else's demands. You have to prioritize and strategize what will move the needle the most for your university.
Yeah, I think it's great advice, because just getting to work for an athletic director and getting to work for a president, it's like, wow, a lot of these, I mean, you're giving speeches, you're going to donor events, but you're also dealing with your own cabinet, you're dealing with your own senior administrative team, and in so many different areas. And everyone hates the moniker of front porch of the university, but it is the most visible. And I think someone called it the window once to the campus, but it's never going to be the most important. And I agree. I don't think it should be, but it's the visibility piece, very critical.
And to your point, the athletic director is dealing with the same dynamic, and some of their pressures. Everyone wants to win, right? And so the pressures of winning, but doing it the right way, is really important. Here at one of the things we set out in 2019 when I arrived, we're going to transition and become a Division I institution, but we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do it our way. And that's grounded in tradition. That's grounded in being ethical. And I'm so proud of our coaches. During our transition, we didn't have one violation, major violation. I think we had a few minor, very minor, like level 3, 4, but no major violations. And some of those violations were learning, just not knowing. Mm-hmm. They were learning mistakes. And I'm so proud of our coaches. We didn't cut corners. We didn't cheat. And along the way, we had back-to-back the highest APR scores in the history of transition institutions. And there it is, yeah. Reclassification process.
Well, my background's in compliance. And so a lot of people say, if you don't have any violations being reported, especially self-reported ones, then that's a problem. Like,
that's right.
Someone's because the whole point is for you to learn, and that's part of the reclassification. So a lot of people might be curious why it took us almost 35 minutes to get to the reclassification topic, but it's been covered well by Ty Brown with ADU and D1 ticker, and I love that conversation. I told you that before we got on here, but so a lot of people saw a lot of the details, but I do have some kind of my own questions about it to mix it into this conversation. But just how difficult was the actual process, and what were some of the? I feel like I know the hardest piece is the postseason. You all haven't shied away from that, and really every single school that goes through reclassification has some success is going to be kind of upset with waivers and not budging. But what are maybe some of the other hardest pieces of the whole reclassification?
Well, you nailed it, Travis. For me, it was always, it was never about the finances. If you looked at all the waivers we filed, it was always in defense of allowing our student athletes and our coaches to have an opportunity to compete at postseason, because we were winning at a very high level. And we won at a very high level. We had a top 5 athletic program. Many would say a top 3 athletic program in Division II when we made the transition. And we felt like that our student athletes and our coaches deserved the opportunity to compete. So we never made it about the process or the money. Troy Arthur and the NCAA, they were extremely helpful. And I do believe there should be a reclassification process. Let me be very clear about that. I think the 4-year window is too much. Certainly, President Baker knows how I feel. The world knows how I feel. It's not hard to Google and find videos and articles in which I say that. And so I'm very open. I do think a 2-year process makes a lot of sense. And if those institutions aren't ready after year 2, then they extend it to year 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. So that being said, for us, the other most difficult process was just getting our coaches acclimated to the pace and scale of a Division I program. And some of our coaches have stepped up and adapted really well, and some did not. And unfortunately, we had to move in a different direction. And that's always hard, because you want to do this collectively and you want to do it together. And our previous athletic director, who was here for 30 plus years, Lon Reisman, did an incredible job. And his goal was, when we started this, was to get us through the reclassification process before he retired and handed it off to someone to take it to another level. For us, the focus was always on compliance, doing it the right way, obviously competition, winning championships at whatever level we could. But third, we wanted to have an absolute excellent academic reputation. That's really important to us. And so we increased the academic profile, if you will, of our university and the athletic department through being able to attract student athletes that were prepared at a much higher level coming in from day one.
Yeah, I think like the D2 to D3, or maybe it's just reclassification into D3, does have an expedited process, but I still think it's like 3 years. And the 2-year is a good idea, in my opinion, because you're not changing, especially from D2 to D1, your financial aid. I mean, you've already been giving athletic aid. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that changing your aid at an institution is quite the process. So if you're jumping from 3 to 1, reclassifying, I had a previous mentor at Sue Willie at University of Annapolis, did not like saying going up or down. It's reclassifying, right? So
me too. I always use reclassification.
I noticed you use that word too. So the 2-year thing does seem like a good idea. So, and then I just had to, another IU person is Troy Arthur.
Yeah.
So just to throw it, since you dropped his name in here. So Troy and I were research partners in a class.
Oh, wow.
He was going for his doctorate, and he finished his doctorate at IU, and I was finishing my master's. So we were in the same class, and just a great guy. And I did not know much about his role whenever we were in class together. But, we'd walk back after class. We'd spend, 3 hours in an evening talking in class. And then I find out from all these ADs and presidents that, wow, this guy's like, everybody knows Troy Arthur. And everybody has great things to say about Troy. So
gentleman's gentleman.
Yeah. And he's a really smart man. And here at the national office, he's been good to keep in touch with.
One more point, Travis, if I may. One of the things that was really important for us, and it was laid out, Oliver Luck as well was a tremendous help for us, because he served as our transitional consultant. And the NCAA highly recommends you to find a consultant to help bounce off pro formas, et cetera. Oliver was tremendous in helping us during our 2 to 3 years together to ensure that we were building and enhancing the facilities. And if you've been on this campus or you've heard anything about our athletic program, we have excellent facilities. We have a 26,000 seat football stadium that's renovated and totally new. We have a brand new baseball, softball, brand new track, brand new soccer, brand new indoor aquatic center. We're getting ready here in the next 3 months to spend $3.5 million on a new weight room, what we call a performance center for student athletes. We have one of the best athletic academic success centers, what we call the AA building, where it is totally dedicated to our student athletes. That's where all of our athletic mentors, tutors, academic advisors, mental wellness coaches, they're all under one roof. And many presidents and folks that have visited us from other conferences or universities have really noted that is a first-class facility. So we spent a lot of money enhancing our infrastructure to ensure that we were going to do this the right way, from academics to athletic performance to training to, again, mental wellness for our student athletes.
I do want to ask one more question about the reclassification process. And I heard this on another podcast, Dr. Karen Weaver, her trustees and president's podcast. Was it West Georgia, I think, that went from D2 to D1 as well. Yep. Another unique D2 school in that it's larger, about twice as large as your average school. You could argue Tarleton's about 3 times the size of a D2. And these are always going to be institution-specific decisions, but with everything going on right now with the House settlement and just with the recent NCAA Constitution change and the uncertainty around D1, the whole idea of D2 now, Texas, I'm sure it's a lot more people in that space. But here in the Midwest, for example, there's really not a lot of D2 presence, and it's more spread out than D1 and D3. And just kind of I think a comment on that podcast was, is D2 in limbo? And I know you're not going to say anything bad about D2. It's a great division. But as far as you're either big enough or reputation-wise, you want to go to Division I for trying to get out there for the visibility, or D3, you have a lot more flexibility and you save on money and you get to still make a great student-athlete experience and a student experience. I mean, what do you kind of feel like is the identity of D2?
I still think D2 is going to be healthy. In fact, I think over the next, let's call it year to 5 years, I think you're going to see another reset of institutional priorities and decisions based upon the economics of and the price point of the cost of doing business at the Division I level. Whether it's I think the Power Four conferences will eventually kind of break off and create their own, let's say CFP. I don't know what they'll call themselves, but it's certainly probably going to look like that. I think you're going to have 100 to 120-ish schools that kind of comprise an FBS level. You're going to have the FCS level, which probably will comprise of about 100 institutions, maybe less, because I think at that point, institutions are going to have to make a decision. Is the investment providing a large enough return on that investment? And for some institutions, Travis, we know the answer is no. We know they can't afford to do business. We're very healthy. Our athletic budget is right at about 35 million here, which is very strong. That includes, kind of across the board expenses. And not everyone will be in a position to do that moving forward. And not everyone's going to be able to play among those top 40 or 50 largest universities. So I think you're going to see a reset. I think you're going to see institutions move. Some will move up. Very few will move up. Most will have to move down. And what that looks like. I think D2 is going to be healthy, and I think you're going to have a reset that really allows presidents and boards, faculty, staff to kind of have a reset of what are the priorities for a university.
Yeah, and I think it'll obviously be a very difficult decision to carry out by a board and a president. And a board might say we need to do this, and a president might be, I don't want to be the president that goes from D1 to D2. Because of the attention it will bring. And so I do think it's going to take some courage, even if it's the best decision, to actually carry it out, right? Yeah. Because you don't see tons of that movement, just like you don't see like someone dropping football or doing that, even if they think maybe that's in the best interest of the institution. It's going to be hard to the trickle-down effect of the board telling the president telling the AD, and it can be a sticky situation that I know some schools are probably having those conversations, but you're kind of stuck in decision mode.
No good deed goes unpunished, right?
Yeah. Well, the as we wrap up, I'm curious about one more role in your office and on your cabinet, and that's the president's chief of staff. And so there was I think it's too few to be called a trend. So I like to look and see like the duties of certain roles, and I still get to work. So in the office I'm in right now at IU, the VP of Strategic Operations at IU, that VP, is also the president's chief of staff, who I worked closely for a year when I was in the president's office. And I noticed that looks similar to your chief of staff, Dr. Baker. And I was just kind of curious because this is kind of growing into a trend in Power 4 institutions where they have someone on staff that's essentially the chief of staff, and they might not call it that yet, but it's if you try to do research on the position, you end up with the like U.S. president's chief of staff, or you come up with some government agency chief of staff. But just in your vision, maybe can you describe that role and the balance of that VP role with the chief of staff responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm very fortunate to have Dr. Credence Baker as my chief of staff. She's the best in the country, hands down. She has this ability to balance kind of across the spectrum the things that the president's office has to deal with, and she is housed in the president's office. The reason we wanted her to serve as vice president for strategic initiatives, or university strategy, if you will, is because of the strategic plan. She, as dean of our College of Graduate Studies, she was then chair of the strategic planning process. And she did an incredible job, and we all kind of fell in love with her leadership ability. I didn't know her well at all. In fact, I'd only been here a few months when we started that process. And the reason we had to start a process so quickly was I was facing our SAC CLC 10-year reaffirmation visit. And we had done very little to prepare for that upon my arrival, very little. And so we had to quickly get a 10-year strategic plan that aligned with our 10-year SAC CLC process. We had a QEP that we were somewhat developing, but had to change course and align it with the strategic plan. She did such an incredible job. We all call Dr. Baker Switzerland, and really, that's ideally what you want your chief of staff to be. That person that can serve as a buffer between the president's office and students and alumni and legislators and faculty and staff. The president can't be at all places at all time. And so she's done an incredible job of filling in for me at certain events. She will speak on my behalf at certain events that you just can't make every single day. And so the demands of a schedule on the president requires you to have a great spouse or partner, in my case, our first lady, and then also someone like Dr. Baker and my cabinet. I really use my executive cabinet as extension chief of staff, if you will, chiefs of staff, I should say, because there are certain roles that they could speak better than I could on a subject matter. And so we're very strategic in using our cabinet. She's very strategic in keeping them engaged and involved in the things that really keep the institution moving forward. And we often say here to move the needle in a positive direction for the institution. And so she has to balance that role. She also oversees all of the admin assistants, the schedulers, and the student workers in the president's office. And so ensuring that my time is strategically balanced, and that she reviews my schedule every single week to ensure that they're maximizing the time, like this podcast, for example, adding value to others and adding value to the stakeholders of the institution.
Well, hopefully when Dr. Baker, she gets a chance to watch or listen to this, she doesn't regret the hour that she afforded me with you.
Been great.
So what I appreciate the role so much. You know, if you ask me what role in a university, whether it's in university administration like I'm in now, or in college athletics where 10 plus years of my career has been, the chief of staff role is really the one that what I appreciate about the role is you need to know basically everything that's going on in the university, at least at a certain level, right? And what I've noticed, it's why I did my doctorate in higher ed instead of getting a third degree in athletic administration. I said, I want to learn about university administration. It's why I applied for the job to work in the president's office. It's given me such a different perspective. And my only concern is that people that are in athletics don't understand enough about the rest of the university. And I think it was Ross Bjork when he was still at Texas A&M. I think he had told me that he encourages his staff to find their counterpart at the campus level. And I really just think that people need to take up that and take advantage of being on a university, because we have so many people that do similar roles at a university. And, even every person in your cabinet probably has someone that is, maybe it's not called their chief of staff. It might be a senior advisor or a deputy, whatever. But it's just, you can learn so much from people on your university, especially at the size of a Tarleton.
Absolutely. And that you brought up something, two things that back to, if I could give advice to aspiring leaders in athletics in particular. One of the people that I'm very, very fond of is Dr. Kevin White, the former athletic director at Duke and Notre Dame, but he now is a consultant for Huron, which we use Huron quite often here. They're a great company and organization to help strategic thought and movement and budgets, et cetera. But he holds a doctorate. And I think that's really good advice, because I think moving forward, more presidents, including myself, will gravitate toward folks that have those terminal degrees. It just adds to the depth and educational experience and knowledge that your cabinet possesses by having that degree. And so I think that's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice, you kind of jogged my memory, Travis, so thank you, was find a mentor. Find someone. Like Dr. Baker has several mentors. I have mentors across the country that are in similar roles. And so find someone that's in that role that can help advance your skill set and make you a better leader. I think that's really, really important. And you do it. I do it. Dr. Baker does it. And I think that's really important for anyone aspiring to move and kind of move up in the leadership realm.
Yeah, I had Chancellor Plowman. I'm not sure if you got to listen to that or watch it, but I had her on last fall, and a great campus. She's a great leader. Literally her background is in change management.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I brought up is Dr. Danny White, and Dr. Kevin White's got his other son is the athletic director at FAU, just signed a huge extension to stay there, and so they just he works really closely. He developed Nina King at Duke, who had also been on the podcast. They taught a class together, and he's one of those legends in the field that I have not met yet, but I really hope to at some point. And so my last thing to close was going to be any recommendations on pursuing advanced degrees for people listening, but you kind of spoke to that. I just did this with the podcast I just did just yesterday, and I say it probably all the time. People probably get annoyed with over repeating it, but I can't recommend enough that people take advantage of the employee benefits that hopefully their institution has. I was in a unique situation where I was dead set on doing my doctorate, but I was at a D2 university that didn't offer doctorate degrees, and I couldn't afford, without going into debt, my doctorate. And so fortunately an athletic position at IU came open, and I had a mentor there already. Went in, did their certification, ran eligibility and APR and things like that, and got started on my doctorate. And then I'm now in my third role at IU over the last 5 years, but continually learning new experiences. But people, you got to think about that, because I mentioned this too, so I have a master's degree in athletic administration, but most people that have finished those, at least in an athletic side, we were so busy trying to make it in our job that when we were a GA or something, we didn't probably put as much into our degree. And I feel like now that I'm 35 finishing a doctorate, I feel like I have an appreciation for every single assignment that I have, because it's very different than an undergrad degree. So I'll just end it, and you can share thoughts on that if you want. But just with people looking at your employee benefits, looking at the programs your university offers, because I really do think it can help you a lot. Maybe it's not a doctorate, but maybe it's another master's degree.
Yeah, and we're so blessed here in the Texas A&M system and at Tarleton State. We're doing really well financially. We're one of 4 PUF schools, permanent university funded schools in the system. So the financial resources and our growth has been incredible. And what we've done each year, and my upcoming October 3rd State of the University, we're getting ready to make another big announcement on kind of doubling down our efforts again to ensure that we're building programs to grow our own and promote our own employees and even graduates that want to move into a professional higher ed capacity. And so at the A&M system, our system regents and chancellor pays for a doctorate. If you can take a doctoral degree at any of the universities and they pay for it. It's incredible. It's an incredible benefit. I agree with you. You cannot take advantage of that enough. And those degrees, those stackable degrees are really going to pay dividends for you in the long run. I'm also a big believer in diversifying. Like, for example, while I was at IU, I got my emphasis in the College of Ed was finance. And that's my background. Same at Morehead State. My degree is educational, higher educational administration and finance. So find ways that you can, and of course my undergrad's business. And so I wanted to find ways that diversified my academic pedigree, if you will, or portfolio that allowed me to potentially distinguish myself from others when you're competing for a presidency or an athletic director or an associate AD, because it's uber competitive out there. And the more degrees you have that are diverse, the better you're going to serve your institution and probably be more valuable to an executive cabinet or a president or whomever.
Yeah, and I'll just cap that by saying I did a customized minor because you're required to do a minor and a doctorate usually, and mine is in athletic administration where I've done 2 classes, an independent study on program review and administrative review of how it would apply to athletic directors and athletic departments, because they don't usually fall under those reviews because they're not an academic unit. And then the 4th experience is that I'm doing next semester is an actual project with the athletic department at IU. And so you can find these ways to kind of customize once you're in a graduate level. So I appreciate those comments. I realize I should have just gone to Texas A&M and convinced the wife to let us move out of Indianapolis. I made an agreement when we got together, 12 years ago, we wouldn't move out of Central Indiana, and it makes your career in college athletics a little more complex if you're ambitious. But Texas A&M I should have sold her on Texas, right? I could have gotten the whole thing for free. It quicker.
It's a great system. It's a great state, and it's a great country within a country. So we're Texans. We're very proud.
Yeah, Dr. Hurley, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast and giving up an hour of your time. I know it's a busy day being September 11th, and I appreciate you kicking the comments at the beginning of the conversation about that. And so hopefully everybody's thinking about that. And we'll obviously won't release this on September 11th, but we're all thinking about that today. So thank you for joining me and talking about Tarleton State. It's been fun to learn more about it, and I can't wait to wear my cowboy hat. I have a white cowboy hat. And I'm going to bring it whenever I come to.
And we'll make sure you get a pair of boots, and you'll fit right in. And so Travis, I want to say thank you for adding value to people. That's what leadership's about. It's not containing the information. It's about disseminating what you have and what you know. And if it makes one person's life better, or gives them an opportunity to advance, what you're doing is worthwhile. And so I just want to say thank you for adding value. You've added tremendous value to me today, and you've added value to others. And thank you for your time. And as we say here at Tarleton State, it states up, and may you forever bleed purple.